If you haven't read or don't like any of these books, then we can't be friends. Hello and welcome to Lily's Library. So today we're going to be talking about 25 different books that you need to be reading in 2025. So these are some of my favorite books from my favorite genres. I've broken this into 4 different genres. We've got fantasy, sci-fi, horror, and fiction. So I think I'm going to be starting with the smaller ones first and then working up to fantasy, which has got 10 books. So we're going to start with my top 5 fiction books that I think you need to be reading in 2025, or just reading in general if you haven't already. So this will be in no particular order, but the first one on this list is If We Were Villains. This is by M.L. Rio. This is one of my all-time favorite books. I actually have a tattoo with a quote from the book, and I just absolutely adore this. If you're a fan of dark academia and Shakespeare and pretentious, unlikable characters, I think you will really enjoy this. So If We Were Villains is centered around a murder mystery. It is set at a prestigious college where these students are doing a course in Shakespeare and theatre. They unironically quote Shakespeare to each other throughout the whole book, have discussions purely in quotes from Shakespeare, and it is just very pretentious, but the perfect setting. And in this, we start off in decades after they've been at school, after a murder has happened, and one of the characters has gotten out of prison and is telling this detective that originally worked the case what actually happened. The detective has retired, they have no input into what happens with this case going forward, but they've always had an inkling that they arrested the wrong person and that this person that has been paying the price for this crime is not actually the one that did it. And they go through the story, recap everything that happens, and it's interspersed with those present day things of the detective trying to piece things together and having this discussion. It is heartbreaking and beautiful and pretentious as fuck, and I absolutely love it. Like I said, if you love dark academia and Shakespeare, I think this is something you will really enjoy. Next is Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata. Again, another favorite of mine. This is a very good introduction to translated and weird fiction, and a perfect introduction into Sayaka Murata's work. It's definitely the more accessible and more tame one of this. But in this book, we follow a woman who is in her mid to late 20s. She's kind of very content in where she is in her life. She's just kind of working in the convenience store, getting by day to day, but she's not really searching for more. She's just kind of fine with where she is. But the people in her life aren't fine with her decision. She's facing a lot of pressure from friends and family and just society in general to get married, have kids, get a full-time business job, and work in like an office, but that's really not what she wants in life. And she ends up meeting a co-worker who's kind of facing the same thing, so they decide to have an asexual marriage and kind of just live together to fulfill that and get people off their backs. It looks a lot about the machine that is the working society and the working world, especially in Japan, the pressures on women and people and couples, and just looking at the expectations that these people face and the way this character kind of just doesn't want to deal with anything. I would say she doesn't care. She cares, but in a different way than what we'd expect. And I just really loved the discussions around being a woman in this and being forced to do things and people having such great expectations for you and you not really caring and just wanting to do your own thing. I just really enjoyed this one and think it is something that a lot of people would love. This next one is one I wasn't too sure whether I should put in the fiction genre or the horror genre, so I have put it in fiction just because it is very more literary fiction than it is a straight up horror. There is definitely horror elements to it, but this is Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. I read this for the first time last year and I read it twice last year. I listened to it on audio first, which I absolutely adored the audiobook. It is really good if you're looking for a slapping audio. And then I immediately reread it physically a month later so I could annotate it. But this is such a beautiful and harrowing tale of grief and love and acceptance. In this, we follow Leah and Miri. One of them has just come back from a mission underneath the ocean. She was going on a research trip in a submarine and they ended up getting trapped on the ocean floor for an undisclosed amount of time. There's not really a whole lot of information about why they got stuck. Like obviously something failed, but we don't really know too much of what actually happened and all of that. We're dealing mostly with the aftermath. We cut between one of their perspectives being in that submarine and under the ocean, but there's not a whole lot of answers there. And then we also have the other perspective of when the wife is back and dealing with that and how her life has changed, the love of her life has changed. Like everything is completely different. And it's looking at the different stages of their relationship as it kind of progresses through the deep sea, and it's just such a beautiful and really heartbreaking tale of love and grief. And I just think everyone needs to read it. It's very much an open ending and kind of not totally wrapped up. It is, but it's not. And I just think it is something that I think everyone needs to read, whether you're a literary fan or not. If you just are looking for a really heartbreaking tale of love and grief that is sapphic, then I think this is perfect. I just still really don't know how to put into words how much I love this book. It's something I can see myself rereading every single year. It is just so beautiful, and there is so much you can take from it, and oh, I just love it. Next, we have got another really important read. This is a bit different though. This is Minor Detail by Dania Shibley. This is a very harrowing and very tough read, but I think it is something that everyone should read now if you haven't already, especially given the latest information that has come out with what Israel's plans for Gaza is and the mass extermination of Palestinians that they are conducting. But this is a translated work. It is told in two parts. The first one is during the 1945 occupation of Palestine, I think. I might put the correct year up on the screen because I'm not 100% certain. But in our historical part of the book, we follow a soldier who is there, obviously one of the occupying forces, and we kind of get hooked on this minor detail in history. We follow that their occupation, the kind of horrible things they have done, the people that they've killed. And in this, we specifically focus on one woman who is held captive. She is assaulted, she is raped, it is just horrible, the treatment of what happens to this woman. But it is one person that we focus on, but it is the tale of thousands, if not millions. It is not a unique story, and it is something that has been sadly forgotten in this world. Then our second part of the book focuses on a woman who is more set in modern day time. She has found this thing that happened, and she's trying to find out the truth of it, investigating it, finding out what happened to these soldiers, were there repercussions, what even happened to this woman, what was her name. And we follow her on her journey as she tries to find out more about this minor detail and how so many things that happened in the past are still things that are happening in the present. This is a very important read. If you are someone that is not aware of what has been happening in Palestine for the past, more than 70 years, then you should definitely read this book as a fictionalized version of what is very much true and daily life for these people. It is so important, and I just am imploring all of you to read this book if you haven't. Now, the last book in the fiction category is a historical fiction. This is At the Foot of the Cherry Tree by Ali Parker, who is a dear friend of mine, and I absolutely love her books and her writing. She's actually got another book coming out later this year, but this is her debut. So this is a historical fiction. Like I said, it's partially set in Japan and Australia, and in it is telling the story of Australia's first official Japanese war bride during World War II, who happens to be Ali's grandmother. So in this, we follow Gordon Parker, who is Ali's grandfather. It looks at him joining the Australian army. He works as a medic and stuff, and is sent to Japan to work in their occupied areas of Japan, and he just helps with the medic stuff there and provides first aid and support. There he meets Cherry, who is Ali's grandmother, and it follows their relationship and that fight through Australia's White Australia policy. If you're not really aware of Australia's history around immigrants, especially immigrants of colour, during this period of time, I definitely recommend researching it more. It is a very fucked up part of Australia's history that I think everyone should be aware of. There is so much that has happened in this country that has changed and also has regressed over the years, and we should be aware of our history to prevent it from happening again. But in this, we focus on Gordon's fight to bring his family and his wife back to Australia, his fight against the government, talking to other people that have tried to do the same thing and have failed, what they have had to resort to doing so they can live together. And it is very interesting. We also get some of the stuff once they do end up in Australia and the community's reception to it, living in Melbourne and Victoria. It is a very interesting and heartbreaking book. It looks a lot about the impacts of war, the way that these Japanese women were treated by the occupying forces of Australia and other countries in Japan. We look a lot at Hiroshima as well, and it is just really a devastating book, but that it's so full of hope at the same time, and it is just wonderful, and I need everyone to read it. Okay, now to completely change tone, we're gonna go through my 5 horror books I recommend. The first one is an all-time favorite, and that is Bad Cree. This is by Jessica Johns. So Bad Cree is an Indigenous horror. It is probably one of the scariest horrors I have read personally. It's not that it's necessarily gory, it just uses a creature or being from Indigenous mythology that I absolutely detest and makes me so scared and uncomfortable. So that made it a very tough read. But in this, our main character wakes up one morning and she's holding a crow skull clenched in her hand. She's been having weird dreams that have been plagued by crows. She's seeing them everywhere, and she's kind of been away from her family for a while after the death of her sister. And she's kind of trying to process that grief, but also kind of just trying to shun it away so she doesn't have to deal with it. This is really about family connections and processing grief. So she decides to go back to her hometown and see her family again to go through all of this stuff where her other sister still is. It goes through what happened leading up to her sister's death, the aftermath, the death of her grandmother as well, the importance of family and community ties, especially with Indigenous people during these times of mourning. And it is very much horrifying. I really don't think I can tell you all that much more than that, just because I think it's something that you kind of need to know the very basics of before you dive in. But this literally gave me goosebumps when I was reading it. It was horrifying. Okay, continuing with kind of themes of grief, my next recommendation is Monstrilio. This is by Gerarda Somono Cordova. This is harrowing and beautiful. If you love Frankenstein, I think you'll really enjoy this. This book is told in 4 different parts following 4 different characters from this family. The first part really focuses on the mother, and it looks at her life and her husband's life after they lose their son. And once her son does die, she ends up carving a piece of his lung out of him and feeding it and taking care of it. And it is that physical manifestation of her love and her grief and not being able to let go of what happened. This little lump of lung eventually grows teeth and then turns into a hairy ball, grows a tail, and starts growing until it becomes Monstrilio, this creature. So we follow her dealing with this grief, not being able to let it go, trying to love Monstrilio as her son. Then we have another part as well about her husband, following the way that he processes this grief and what has happened. We follow her best friend who is in love with her as well, and how she kind of plays into this family and her role in it. And then the final part we follow is Monstrilio. This definitely makes you confront a lot of your feelings about what is happening. It is a very difficult to read book as well. If you're a very empathetic person, you will be sobbing throughout this because it is just full on, but it is just such a beautiful and unique take on grief and love and being a family. It's got a lot to do with being queer as well and queer love. It is just honestly such an incredible book that I think so many people can take so much from, and I just need more people to read it. My next recommendation is if you love coming of age stories but want them to be brutal and gory and fucked up, then I think you need to read Chlorine by Jade Song. In this, we follow a swimmer who is trying to be the best swimmer that she can be. She's very much got a god complex, but it works for her. It looks at being a teen athlete, a high school athlete, the pressures that are put on her, not only to succeed in school, but also in swimming, and then the things she kind of faces trying to become her best. It is also sapphic as well. We've got kind of that queer love and unrequited love as well, and it is just really harrowing. In this, our main character thinks that she is actually a mermaid, and the lengths that she goes to try and achieve that and just get to where she wants to be is very disturbing, and the ending of this is just heartbreaking. It is such, again, a unique book. It is very interesting to take its take on being a teenage girl and being a teen athlete especially, and the way that she kind of deals with these pressures, and it is just so harrowing, but so good. On kind of lighter-ish note for horror, my next recommendation is What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. Honestly, it was a struggle not to put multiple T. Kingfisher books on this list, but I think this is my favorite out of all of them. What Moves the Dead is a Fall of the House of Usher retelling. This is a novella. It is set in a crumbling mansion that's got something dark and sinister at the center of it. Our main character, Alex, is a former soldier. They're a veteran, and they are going to this house to see their old family friend who is sick and dying, and they kind of have to discover whether their friend is dying from an illness, if she's just sick and it's like aging or something that's happened, or if there is something more sinister in this house that is killing her. It is genuinely quite horrifying. If you like things with mushrooms and weird stuff happening, then I think you'll really enjoy this. My final horror recommendation is We Used to Live Here. This is by Marcus Claywar. This is a really interesting book. It started out as like a serialized Reddit story, like short story series, and then it is now a book. The rights to it have also been bought by Netflix, I believe, so hopefully one day we will get a movie or a TV show out of it. This is a book that I just devoured. I flew through it so fast. It was so uncomfortable and unsettling, but so perfect, and has so many questions it raises. Again, this is kind of something that's got a more open ending, or there's so many different interpretations of it. You really don't get a lot of answers. But in this, we follow Eve and Charlie. They have just bought this house that is kind of like quite far away. It's in this suburb where the only way in and out is over this bridge, which can get closed when it snows and everything. And it's just quite far and removed from everything around the perimeter of it. It's got this deep, dark forest. And one night, Charlie is there working on stuff while Eve has gone out to get them dinner. And Charlie's home alone. She hears a knock on the door and opens it, and it's a family. It's this father with his kids and his wife. And he's basically asking if he can bring them inside for a tour. They were passing through the area. He grew up in the house apparently and just wants to show his family where he came from. And Charlie, for some reason, lets them in, but a lot of weird stuff starts happening once she lets this family in. Charlie realizes that this house is harboring a lot of secrets, and she doesn't really know if she can trust this family, especially the father, who is the one that grew up in this house. There's so many weird things going on. It's kind of paranormal, and you don't know whether what is happening is real or not. There's kind of things to do with like almost alternate dimensions and rooms connecting where they shouldn't, hallways being where they aren't, a weird thing happening in the basement. It is genuinely very unsettling, and is just, there's so many questions about this book. I still think about it from time to time, and I'm still very confused about what happened. It has a lot to do with like this old house mythology and how like there's different houses that are connected from different ways, and it's very, very odd. Hello, so editing Lily here. This video turned out to be a lot longer than I thought it would be. I ended up filming for almost an hour, and I just don't have time to edit that much stuff and get this up in time, so I will be splitting it into a second part. So part 2 will be coming out next weekend, and it will have sci-fi and fantasy book recommendations. We'll have 15 books to get through then, so it's probably going to end up being a lot longer, and I've already cut as much stuff out of this part as I can, so I will give you a little taste of what is to come. The next one is, again, one of my all-time favorite ones. I have a tattoo for this as well. They have this technology where they can implant different memory chips into people's heads. My jaw was on the floor for half of the book. It is insane what happens. I, again, sobbed so much reading this.